In my previous video, I shared some marriage checklist as regards to the things you have to take note of before you get married. And I was able to divide this checklist into two parts. That is, in terms of financial, emotional, spiritual, mental, societal, physical, and the likes of them. Then I also divide it into a section that generalize the order, that is in terms of life goals, aspiration, resilience, expectation, societal defense, and the likes of them. And I figured that sometimes before we can actually get into marriage, before we can actually start discussing marriage, there are some things we can actually take note of. That is, these are the signs and the things we can actually see in our husband to be, and they are potential warning things that can actually draw our attention back to normalizing if this person is good for us or not. So because of that, I figured that there are some red flags and signs that we can actually see to make us tell if this particular person is good for us or there is a potential risk that can actually happen during the journey. Or maybe there are things we need to watch out for before we even start discussing marriage. And because of that, I've been able to create this video. And the topic is red flags in relationship. And I'm going to be dividing this video into two as well because I divided the marriage checklist into two. And I think that gave a kind of broader perspective about what marriage should look like. And when it comes to relationship as well, I'll be dividing that into two. That is in terms of the first notions I created in terms of marriage and generalized terms in terms of relationship. All right. So one thing about relationship is that there are certain levels to this thing because sometimes what is working for you might not be working for me, and what is working for me might not be working for you as well. So because of that, we believe that relationship and marriage is a single entity. That is just like they say in terms of hospitals, in terms of health facilities. They believe that every patient is an individual. So every relationship and marriage is also an individual because sometimes what is working in this marriage, when you bring in the idea into another marriage, it might not actually work. And that is because, they share different background and they are embarking on different journey. But there are some generalized things that actually bring all these things together. And that is the thing that we're going to be approaching at this very first part. And you should understand that sometimes your relationship is not going to be an influence of somebody else's. It solely depends on how you are finding happiness and how much that happiness is feeding you before you can actually get to the next level. And at the same time, when we talk about love, this is an affection we feel for the opposite gender in terms of being a feminine or masculine. And there are some traits that comes with this. And this trait, when we get to a particular point or level, then we can begin to say that these are potential warning signs or these are flags that needs to be attended to or that needs to be addressed to. Just like I shared in the first part of the marriage checklist, I'm going to be starting with financial constraints. When your relationship is most times or mostly about you addressing finances, or there are certain inadequacies when it comes to money, or you are always having a kind of unfinished discussion as regards to finances, putting money in check, or somebody letting go of his or her own financial insecurities, or somebody addressing the other person with greater expectations that this person has to be taking on these financial roles and duties, or the other person is not seeing the need to contribute financially. There are different questions around this notion. But when you realize that there are so many financial constraints, you can hardly tell if your spouse to be is willing to share his financial status with you, or is a type that you struggle before you can communicate your financial needs. But when it's even getting to the point whereby you were supposed to be getting more from him, he is not responding. I believe it is something you need to take note of and something you need to watch out for because when both of you eventually get settled, there are going to be a lot of financial expectations and financial issues that needs to be tackled. And if you don't lay the foundation from the beginning, you are going to be bearing most of the financial responsibilities in the home. So when you notice that when it gets to money, both of you are not actually on the same page, or both of you are having a lot of difficulties. I'm not talking about when it comes to you buying irrelevant things, but when it comes to you doing the most important things in the house, probably you're talking to him about getting accommodation or saving for his house rent or putting food on the table or getting the important things in the house in having some kind of sponsor maybe to your program, or you are trying to get some business set up and he is not actually responding, these are important things that has to do with growth development and relationship success. And if you see that it's not forthcoming in that manner, I think it is one thing you need to watch out for. And when it also comes to you taking care of yourself, getting yourself close, there's nothing wrong with you getting some things for yourself at different instances than your husband to me is actually participating. But when it comes to being difficult, when it comes to financial responsibilities, I think it's something you really need to watch out for. And I think the next one that actually is coming on my list is mental stability. When it comes to relationship and your soon-to-be husband is not showing that sign of having a kind of mental stability that he is the type of person that is so unstable when it comes to his mentals. He does not actually think like a real human being. When you're talking in the direction of a kind of positive side, he is going to be talking down. For example, you want to embark into a business, or you have a career you are trying to pursue, or you have a big ambition, or you have something you're working on. Instead of him coming to you with that, positivity mindset in terms of support, in terms of his own positive perspective of what you're doing, and it's always retarding you. You understand? He's not actually coming forth. His thinking is not actually the right way. He thinks forward today and thinks backward tomorrow. He's always focusing on the good and bad, and the bad is even more on his own side. He does not actually see the need for you to set your foot forward, and he's just going back and forth. He's not so stable. Today you can predict his mental, tomorrow you might not predict because of probably some, well, maybe there's work, environment, family, a lot of things actually affecting him. He's not the type of person that says some things and maintains the ground. He's always going back and forth. I think it's something you might want to consider, and it's something you really want to check and address before you guys actually take the next step. The next thing on my list when it comes to red flag relationship is emotional irregularities. I mentioned this when it comes to marriage. All these things are actually notions that has to do with relationship, intimacy, and marriage. When your guy is not so unstable and he has a lot of emotional irregularities as regards to today, he will tell you he misses you, and within the space of 2 or 3 weeks, nothing again, he's not saying anything, and he comes back again after like a month. He's not really the type of person that checks on you. He's not really the type of person that gives you that emotional concern. He does not even know when you're sad. He does not even know when you're crying. He does not even know when you need some attention or you need some treatment from him. He's so unstable and he has some irregularity when it comes to emotion. He's not the type of person that feels pain or sees through you to be able to explain what is going on. Sometimes when we are in relationship, we women, we are naturally gifted to always sense inadequacies in a lot of things we do. But these guys, to some of them are not actually like that. But when you talk about love, intimacy, and connection that goes beyond likeness, there should be a sense of, intriguing promptness that will always be coming to you that maybe your partner is not feeling too good, or your partner needs your attention, or there's something that needs to be attended to, or your partner is not doing actually fine. Sometimes when we love somebody so much, you are going to be having a sense of living for that person because you will be feeling for the person. And sequentially, sometimes you get to understand how this person is feeling. You can actually dictate what's wrong with this person, or you can even imagine or think about maybe there's telling that this thing is wrong with this person, and you'll be able to communicate in language. That's the love language communication. So if your partner is not exhibiting that trait, is not giving you that emotional regularity, he's so unstable, you can't even count on him when you need someone to lean on. You can't actually call on him when you need him. He's always so emotionally unavailable because of his work, his duties, his careers. I think it's something you actually need to consider and need to talk about. The next thing on my list here is spiritual inadequacies. I know some people that have actually gotten married because of spiritual regularities. When I talk about spirituality, this has to do with personal choices. That is your religion, your deen, how do you want to practice it? And when your partner, that is for somebody that is actually taking spirituality important. Somebody that is actually more concerned about how this person is supposed to be or operate. So for somebody like me, I would actually prefer somebody that matches up to my spiritual level because I believe that there is more to what is happening in this world than what we are just seeing and what we are hearing. So there are so many things that connects us to the universe. And for somebody like me, when somebody is not matching up to my spiritual level, I think I'm going to be having a important for that because I want somebody that can match up to that level so that when things arise, other than superficial things, we'll be able to tackle this. And I don't even mind if this person is having a higher spiritual level rank than me because I really love and appreciate that. So for somebody like you that is actually interested and intrigued by spiritual regularities and adequacies, you need to consider this because when things happen or when it gets to a level that you need some spirituality in terms of universal connection to your lifestyle and universal guidance about whatever you are doing, and your partner is not matching up, instead of you complaining after when you eventually get settled, it's something that needs to be addressed at the onset. Probably is not the type that prays with solat. Is not the type that dressed like a Muslim. Is not really the type that understand the importance and relevance of the divine being in each and every one of us life. Is not the type that actually fast, does not practice the thing, and he is a Muslim. But there are different things that is not actually backing up the point. So it might be a beard guy or be the mashallah looking brother, but he's not actually portraying that characteristics and attribute of being an ideal Muslim. So I believe it's something that needs to be questioned and discussed on time. And if you're not actually addressing this over the time, the relationship board in terms of spirituality will eventually bounce back on you. And I can tell that when it comes to getting settled in marriage after the phase of relationship, the woman will be having a lot of burden. You don't even want to start thinking about the burden that will get to you when it comes to spirituality because your attention will be divided and even your spiritual level might even get dropped off. So at this point, you need somebody that can actually match up to that level. So if your husband to be is not matching up to this, I strongly suggest that it is something important to consider talking about. The next thing on my list is physical satisfaction. I believe that when it comes to this relationship, it is different case for different people, but I think you can actually pinpoint the one that makes most sense to you. There are so many relationships that has actually shattered because of physical satisfaction. Because most guys or some guys that actually know what they are looking for, they will complain that the woman does not really know how to dress, she doesn't really know how to put herself together. The way she's looking at her appearance, her outfits, her comportment, and the likes of them. And this is something I strongly believe and suggest that women should also consider when it comes to their man. Sometimes these men, when they grow into marriage for a while, they start getting fatter or they get thinner or they kind of carry a kind of body that you're not really proud of. If you know you're not actually satisfied with your husband to be, body shape, the way he's looking, I suggest you really, really talk about it because at the long run, when you see somebody that embodies that quality you're looking for in a guy, you are going to get distracted and something will definitely draw your attention because that is what you really want in the first place. So you don't have to shy away from this conversation. If you see or you know that the way he's looking, I'm not talking about you looking for a perfect guy that matches all boxes without a single spot of mistake or errors. No, I am saying if you're talking about a man on a physical level, an average human being, the way he should look like, as regards to being a Muslim that suits your physical appearance, I strongly suggest you talk about this and meet up at a particular point. The next thing on my list is social perspective. When it comes to relationship, when you are sensing that your husband to be is bringing in norms and standards from the society, is not really the type of person that carries individual perspective. He's always talking about the way people see things rather than the way he sees things. He's always trying to address most of your conversations based on external jurisdictions, not the way he sees it. He does not really have a singular opinion. He has a massive way of thinking. There are different ways people address situation. Most times when we talk about something, we usually hear different concepts and perspective from the outsiders, from people. But at the same time, we are supposed to filter all these suggestions and perspective and bring the idea into our own lifestyle so that it can match. And when we notice that some of these things are not matching up to our thought, they are not matching up to our lifestyle, they are not matching up to our mindset and belief, then we need to let go of those ones and take the ones that suit us. So if you see that your soon to be is not actually the type of person that addresses things from his own perspective, he does not see things from different angles rather than what people tell him. He's not really the person that relies on himself thinking, it relies on the thought of others, He's not actually the person that sees things from different perspectives. He does not filter ideas. He brings things from outside and believes that that concept will work. He's not actually considering the way your relationship is, the stage you are, the kind of goals you're pursuing, the peculiarities around your relationship. He's not using that as a yardstick to just situation. Then I suggest you should consider talking and meeting at a particular point, because at the long run, when you eventually get settled and you start having children, you're going to be having a lot of inadequacies, and he will not be able to bring ideas from what is actually going on in your home. He will be suggesting different ideas and suggesting different notions based on what the society has to offer. Then eventually, this is going to be creating a kind of effect. When you begin to stand up and say some things, when you begin to bring up some ideas, we will not respect those thoughts, because he is not used to having his own ideas. He is not actually used to distinguishing the thoughts of the people and his own thoughts. He is not used to somebody owning their voice. The next thing on my list here is sexual activities, either below or beyond. In terms of intimacy and sexual activities, I strongly suggest you to sit down and talk, address, and also find a meeting point. Because really, sexual activities is one thing that actually creates a lot of issues around marriage and relationship, because we have seen and I have heard different couple, in fact, it has happened to me during my own journey, different couple having different issues as regards to intimacy, sexual activities, their sexual lifestyle. Some guys don't really want a woman that is actually sexually exposed in a manner that is bigger than them. While there are some men that actually want to explore and see what the world has to offer. Now, if you notice there are a lot of inadequacies, he's sexually unavailable, or is sexually too available, or he's having a lot of cravings with regards to sexual and intimacy, or is the person that does not see the need to satisfy you sexually, or there are so many peculiarities around this. I believe you need to speak and address this matter as a very core point of your relationship, because if you get to a point in time, your relationship will be circled around this particular situation, and it will look as if there is nothing else that is working other than what you're saying. So I feel that sometimes when you don't tackle this situation from the very stage of being in a relationship, though we believe that it is not advisable and it is not commendable as Muslims to go through some sexual activities before marriage. But during this time, you need to be able to address the situation so that you will get to have a kind of picture of what is likely to happen. And by the time you eventually get settled and you get married, you're already engaging in this activity, you notice that it is something that is actually giving you concern. I think the earlier the better. You need to start seeking support and counseling from the right people. And I think one thing that will actually sum total of this my points, which is going to be my last point of today, is going to be behavioral activities. I'm talking about a guy being a narcissist, is having a inferiority complex, a guy that has controlling behavior. These are behavioral objectives of a guy. If you sense that he's having a lot of inadequacies as regards to this point, I strongly suggest to reconsider your relationship status and don't give yourself a flying hope. Because men like this are really on the higher side of getting women to live their worst life, because when man is a narcissist, he has inferiority complex, he has controlling behavior, he's going to exhibit some character traits to you that will make you question your existence. And these are the ways men actually control women and keep them in a particular spot till this woman lose the value or lose the sight of exactly why they exist in the first place. But to get to a point that you will start questioning your decision, because it might not be showing this attribute before, but when it begins to show them, or you begin to see some little signs, you will begin to question why you entered the relationship in the first place. Who is a narcissist? This is the person that is always compelling you to take up a kind of act or attitude. He has this behavior of putting you in a kind of context. It makes you think about something you are doing the way he wants you to see it. If you think something is bad, it will act until you are able to see that it is bad. Not because that thing is actually bad, because that is the way he wants you to see it. He's a narcissist in the sense that he is always compelling you to take up a lot of obligations for him, and make you feel as if you are coming into this world to nurture and listen to whatever he has to say. Who is a man that has inferiority complex? He is the person that is always seeing himself below you. And because he sees himself below you, he's going to put you in every possible manner to keep you in check so that you can be under him. He does not like seeing you above him. He sees himself below you. And because he sees you above him, he will always question the authority and always question the reason why you have to be above him. And who is a man that has controlling behavior? This is the person that wants to put a woman in control. That is, it wants to be able to dictate every single thing you are doing with your life. It does not want you to have a say. It does not want you to have a voice. It does not want you to have a pattern other than whatever it tells you to do and whatever it controls you to do. He sees everything as being in charge and he has to put every single aspect of your life in charge. So he is in control. He has to be controlling everything. These are little behavioral objectives of a man or a relationship. And if you sense any of these things coming up, I strongly suggest you consider it to talk about. Some of these again can actually be body shaming, bullying, lashing in terms of the likes of them. When a guy is exhibiting all this character, all this attribute, I strongly suggest you. So a part of it is also a guy that is beating, a guy that is spanking, a guy that is pulling, dragging. He used different ways and methods to put you in place. That is his behavior is just for he's just behaving in the manner that he wants you to be under him and be there for as long as he wants you to be. These are the general red flags in relationship I have actually noticed that over the years, and I hope it actually sparks something in you. And all of these might not actually be a point to consider in your relationship. That's why I've decided to put this video in two sections. And I'm also going to be talking about the other section in the next part of this video, which I'm going to be linking below. And that is in terms of general context, so in terms of behavior, respect, emotional manipulation, consistent addiction, bullying, and the likes of them. I'm going to be talking about that in the next video. Until I see you in my next one. Bye.